Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so you've sent us a whole bunch of reports, analyses, all zeroing in on Tesla right now, mid-2025.
Yeah, and the goal, as I understand it,
Mm.
is to get a clear picture of where they actually stand.
Exactly. So we're going to try and unpack it all for you. We're talking new tech, market challenges, even how people are feeling about the company.
It's quite the mix. Our mission, really, is to shortcut you to understanding what's crucial about Tesla right now.
Right. We'll hit their latest products, software innovations, look at global expansion, but also the hurdles they're facing.
And financials, analyst views, plus that noticeable shift in public perception. It's a lot.
Definitely a mixed bag. Okay, let's get started. Let's dive right into the innovations, maybe kick things off with the Cybertruck.
Good place to start. It's finally, out there. And this new rear-wheel drive version seems key.
Launched in the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, right?
That's right. And the price point in the U.S., $69,990.
Yeah.
That makes it the most affordable Cybertruck here.
So clearly trying to broaden the appeal beyond those initial super high-end buyers.
Absolutely. It's a strategic move, lowering that barrier to entry. And pulling out the air suspension, for example.
Ah, right. That's usually a pricey, complex part.
Exactly. Suggests they're prioritizing affordability, maybe realizing not everyone needs, extreme off-roading.
But it sounds like hitting that price meant some features got the chop. It's not quite the all-singing, all-dancing version we first saw.
Precisely. Yeah, there's a deliberate paring down. The RWD gets coil springs instead of adaptive air.
Okay.
No rear passenger display, durable cloth seats instead of the ventilated leather. And they even skip the HEPA filter, the medical-grade one, and the more prominent front light bar isn't there.
Interesting trade-offs, things that added cost and complexity.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
the core performance still seems pretty decent, doesn't it?
Yeah, around 350 miles of range, potentially a bit more with an optional cover.
And 0 to 60 in just over 6 seconds, towing 7,500 pounds.
Which, for a lot of truck buyers, is probably plenty. More than enough.
Absolutely. It's that classic market segmentation, isn't it? Not everyone needs, or frankly wants, to pay for all the top-tier bells and whistles.
So this opens it up to a much bigger pool of potential customers. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears a bit,
Right.
the software side, Tesla's always big on that. The 2025 spring update sounds pretty significant.
Oh, it is. It's a great example of how they keep adding value over the air long after the car is sold.
So what are the highlights there?
Well, a big one is expanding the Dashcam and Sentry Mode recording. They're now using the B-pillar cameras, too.
Ah, so better coverage. Near 360 degrees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that seems like a direct response to, worries about vandalism people have been talking about.
Right, especially in cities, maybe. Could help with some of the negative press about cars getting damaged.
Potentially, yeah. It
Yeah.
applies to the newer models with the latest hardware, mind you.
Got it. And the adaptive headlights are finally available in the US and Canada now, too.
Yes. Improving nighttime visibility, which is always welcome.
And improvements to the dashcam viewer itself. Seeing all angles at once, better controls.
Yeah, much better scrubbing and skipping through footage. Just making it easier to use when you actually need it.
That sounds like a real quality of life improvement for owners.
Definitely. And then there's the avoid highways option for navigation.
Oh, people have been asking for that for ages, haven't they?
They have more flexibility, scenic routes, maybe routes with better charging or amenities. You choose.
That's great. And tire fill assist. Real-time pressure and sounds when you're filling them.
Yeah, just a neat little convenience feature. Makes it foolproof.
It's often those small things that add up to a good ownership experience.
It is. And even the visualization upgrades, showing trailers accurately, even other Teslas on the screen, refines that whole digital interface.
More intuitive. And they brought back the 12V power socket functionality, Accessory Power Mode.
Yes. That's clearly them listening to feedback.
Huh.
People wanted to power devices when the car's off without draining the main battery too much.
Good call. Sounds like a pretty comprehensive update. I saw notes, too, about cabin radar and some Model Ys for safety.
Right, for enhanced child presence detection. Using radar to see if someone, especially a child, is left inside. A critical safety feature.
And a new Model Y AWD variant, specific color for North America. And that emergency vehicle detection thing, using microphones.
Yeah, it detects sirens, alerts the driver, even lowers the music volume. Just another layer of awareness.
Interesting tech. And of course, full self-driving keeps progressing where they want us to think it is.
Well, they released a promotional video hinting at a European rollout. Still regulatory hurdles there, of course.
Always. But they're pushing ahead, looks like expansion into China and Mexico, too.
Seems to be the plan. And they updated the safety score, version 2.2.
Right. Tweaked out calculates things, removing forward collision warnings from the score, refining the speeding assessment.
It's all part of refining that system used for driving feedback. Maybe insurance discounts for some.
And underlying a lot of this, that 4680 battery tech, achieving the lowest cost per kilowatt-hour.
That's a big deal. It really underscores a potential long-term advantage in efficiency and cost. It's their bigger, more efficient cell design.
Lower production costs, maybe better energy density down the line.
Potentially, yeah.
And speaking of power, this new mobile connector with PowerShare, initially for Cybertruck.
Right. Vehicle to load. Hints at a future where the car can power other things.
Like your house during an outage or tools on a job site.
Exactly. Big implications. Starting with Cybertruck, but suggesting it'll come to other models. That feels like a strategic rollout.
Okay, so lots of innovation. But it hasn't all been smooth, has it? There was that Cybertruck recall.
Yeah, nearly 46,000 recalled for a trim panel defect.
Ouch.
It just highlights the challenges of ramping up something as radically new as the Cybertruck. Quality control is absolutely vital.
Especially with their profile. Issues like that can definitely dent public perception, right? Even with all the hype.
For sure. It can erode some of that initial excitement if quality issues keep popping up.
Okay, so product and software. Genuine advances, but some bumps in the road. Let's shift focus to their global picture. Expansion versus challenges.
Right. The move into Saudi Arabia is pretty noteworthy.
Setting up shop in Riyadh, plans for Jeddah.
Yeah, it's clearly tapping into what they see as a lucrative luxury EV market in the Middle East.
And you'd think the Cybertruck might do well there eventually, that bold design.
Could definitely resonate.
Yeah.
There's often an appetite for unique, high-end vehicles in that region.
But then there's China. Things look trickier there.
Considerably more complex, yes. Suspending orders for the U.S.-made Model S and Model X.
That feels like a direct hit from the trade tensions.
It certainly seems that way. Pulling the Order Now buttons off their Chinese website, WeChat, limiting sales to existing stock.
It's a strong signal. And those potential tariffs, up to 125% on imports.
Yeah, that would essentially make the S and X uncompetitive, completely priced out of the market.
A clear example of how geopolitics can just slam the brakes on a company's plans.
Absolutely. But it's important to remember.
The Model 3 and Y made in China are okay.
Exactly. They're insulated from these tariffs. So the bulk of their volume, their mass market cars in China, that's protected.
That Shanghai Gigafactory really paying off then. A strategic buffer.
A vital one. Still, losing the ability to freely sell your flagship models in a market that big,
Yeah.
it's still a setback. Brand prestige, revenue potential.
Yeah, definitely a hit. Okay, what about Europe? Sounds like market share slipped there too.
It has. Down quite sharply, actually, from nearly 18% in Q1 2024 to just over 9% in 2025.
Wow, that's significant.
It indicates real pressure from competitors. BYD, for example, is making serious inroads in Europe.
Offering compelling alternatives, gaining traction.
Definitely. It's a reminder the EV market is getting crowded. Tesla isn't the automatic default everywhere anymore.
They're not the only game in town.
Not anymore. Although, on a slightly positive note for their European financing.
The regulatory credits.
Yeah, they're still selling those zero-emission credits to companies like Honda and Suzuki who need them to meet targets.
So it's an extra revenue stream, even if car sales are facing headwinds.
Exactly. It contributes to the bottom line.
So globally, it really does feel like a balancing act, pushing into new markets like Saudi Arabia.
While navigating tricky trade policies in places like China, and dealing with fluctuating demand and tougher competition in Europe.
Requires a lot of agility, adapting constantly.
Something that's tough even for established giants.
Okay, let's turn to the financials then. It sounds like things have been turbulent. That 13% drop in Q1 deliveries certainly stands out.
It does. It really highlights the struggle to maintain that, breakneck growth pace they've had for years.
And the stock price reflects that anxiety, down 32% over the year.
Yeah, including a pretty sharp 7.3% drop recently, down to around $252 after a brief rally. Investor confidence seems shaky.
And this is their first year-over-year quarterly sales decline since 2011. Weakest quarter in nearly 3 years.
That really puts it in perspective, doesn't it? For a company synonymous with exponential growth, it's a major shift in the narrative.
So it's not really surprising that analysts are sounding more cautious?
No. That Wedbush downgrade, Dan Ives, Slashing his price target by 43%, that's huge.
Especially since he's been such a bull on Tesla for so long.
Right. And his reasoning is interesting. He points directly at the trade tariffs
Okay.
and what he calls reputational damage from Musk's political ties. He actually coined the term brand crisis tornado.
Wow. Brand crisis tornado.
Yeah. He estimates they could lose maybe 10% of their customer base because of it.
Because some of their traditional base, the environmentally conscious progressive types, might be put off.
That seems to be the concern he's highlighting, hesitant to buy a car associated with politically divisive stuff.
And it wasn't just Wedbush, right? Goldman Sachs, UBS, Mizuho also downgraded.
That's correct. Citing rising costs, weakening demand. It paints a bit of a concerning picture overall.
What kind of rising costs are we talking about?
Could be raw materials, manufacturing, maybe inefficiencies ramping up new models like Cybertruck, plus competition putting pressure on pricing.
And the weaker demand, is that just competition or the public sentiment stuff or maybe market saturation?
Likely a mix of all those things. Increased competition is definitely a factor. The public sentiment issues to get into. And yeah, maybe the early adopter wave is cresting.
So all eyes on the Q1 2025 results then, April 22nd. That feels pivotal.
Absolutely critical. Investors will be scouring those numbers for any sign of a turnaround or if the slide continues.
And looking for updates on FSD progress.
And crucially, any solid details on that cheaper EV model planned for June 2025.
Right. That affordable car is seen as a potential game changer, isn't it?
By many, yes. A potential catalyst to reignite sales and, maybe start turning the financial tide back.
Could be the fresh blood they need in the product lineup. Okay, let's tackle maybe the thorniest issue, public sentiment.
Yeah, this is complex. There seems to be a clear shift. And a lot of reports link it heavily to Elon Musk's political involvement.
His higher profile, perceived alignments, alienating some of their traditional base.
That's the narrative emerging from several sources, yeah. That potential 10% customer loss estimate from eyes speaks to that.
In these hands-off protests on April 5th across all 50 states, millions involved. That sounds massive.
It was a very significant mobilization, 1,400 demonstrations.
What was the main focus there?
Opposition to Trump administration policies, primarily, but also, specifically, Musk's role as head of this Department of Government Efficiency.
So protesters see his involvement as harmful to government agencies, social programs.
That's the clear message. Accusations of conspiring to downsize government, undermining democracy, strong words being used in cities like Boston, New York, Chicago, L.A.
Comparisons to kings. Wow.
It taps into a deep concern about, billionaire influence in politics and government. And the scale shows how widespread that feeling is.
Then there's the Tesla takedown movement. That sounds more targeted, directly at the company.
Exactly. Started on social media, led to coordinated protests at apparently 277 Tesla showrooms, U.S. and some abroad.
And the aim is explicit. Boycott Tesla, hit Musk's wealth.
Seems so. Slogans like, Elon Musk has got to go, banners saying no one elected Musk, drive Tesla out of biz.
Leaves little room for doubt about their goal. And those really controversial comparisons, comparing Musk to a Nazi figure over a gesture.
Yeah, that highlights the sheer intensity of the negative feeling directed at him personally, regardless of how contentious the comparison itself is.
It shows how quickly perception can shift and how negative narratives can explode online.
Absolutely, and unfortunately this seems to have spilled over into actual incidents. Vandalism, even arson.
Against Tesla facilities, cars, including swastika graffiti. That's disturbing.
It is. And it's important to note that Tesla takedown organizers explicitly disavow violence. They're calling for peaceful protest.
Right. But these incidents show the extreme end of the negative sentiment that's out there.
Definitely. And the broader challenge for Tesla here
is alienating parts of that core progressive customer base, turning the brand into a symbol of something they oppose?
Precisely. Becoming a symbol of a billionaire takeover, as some protesters frame it. That's a powerful and potentially very damaging narrative for a brand built on, innovation and sustainability.
Brand loyalty is fragile. Getting tangled in these wider political fights, it can have real consequences for sales and perception.
No doubt about it.
So looking ahead then, what's on the horizon? They still have big plans, right? Robotaxi.
The Robotaxi project, yeah. Planned debut June 2025, integrating customer cars by 2026. That's potentially huge. A big push into autonomy.
And that affordable EV, inspired by the Model Y, also June 2025.
That feels like a make-or-break product, doesn't it? If they price it right, maintain quality. It could be key to regaining market share, appealing to more people.
Reigniting that growth.
Exactly. And we shouldn't forget the ongoing tech stuff. The 4680 battery improvements, cost reductions.
And that power share connector unlocking new vehicle-to-load uses.
Right. Lots of potential there. And then there's that Ecological Paradise initiative at Giga Texas,
Yeah, what's that about? A big green park around the factory.
basically.
Yeah.
Trails, boardwalks, rainwater gardens, wetland restoration, transforming the industrial site into a public green space. It's a long-term vision thing.
Interesting. A different kind of statement.
Yeah, about sustainability, community engagement,
Yeah.
beyond just the cars.
But, of course, there are still major risks looming for those potential 25% auto tariffs.
That could really hurt their costs and competitiveness, depending on where parts and cars are coming from and going to.
And the ongoing threat of protests, further quality issues.
All remain significant concerns, yes.
But maybe their global manufacturing footprint helps mitigate some risk. Having factories in the US, China, Europe.
That's a critical advantage, absolutely.
Yeah.
Spreading production provides resilience against, regional disruptions or political issues in one place.
So the bottom line really feels like execution is everything now.
Across the board, yeah. Innovation isn't enough on its own. They have to navigate the global market maze, manage finances carefully.
And actively work on that public perception problem.
Without a doubt. It's a complex juggling act.
So summing it all up, it's a really contrasting picture for Tesla in mid-2025, isn't it?
It really is. Incredible innovation happening side by side with significant instability and challenges.
Key takeaways. Still leading technologically with products and software.
But facing major headwinds in markets, financials, and, crucially, public sentiment.
Those upcoming Q1 earnings and that affordable EV launch feel like massive moments. They could really set the direction.
For the rest of the year, maybe longer. And for Musk himself, there's this huge challenge.
Rebuilding trust.
On multiple levels, with investors showing caution, customers who might feel pushed away, and the wider public that's become more critical.
Okay. So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's something for you, our listener, to think about.
Given all these challenges, the tech, the economics, the social perceptions, what single factor do you think will be the most crucial for Tesla's long-term success? And why?
Think about that balance, between groundbreaking innovation and just needing that broader acceptance and trust from society.
It's a fascinating question.
It is. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.